Welcome back to Posting Through It. I'm Jared.
And I'm Mike.
Before we get going, just going to plug the Patreon. This is a listener-supported show. We don't have ads. We don't have fancy sponsors. This show exists because of our listeners and the support they show us on Patreon. It helps us out a ton, and we've been having a lot of fun producing weekly premium episodes over there. The community's always growing. We've got a good band of people. So,
also, if you like the episodes, Jared, where it's just us like this, where it's nice and intimate, you're going to love those Thursday episodes.
And if you live in the Washington, D.C. area or want to make plans to be there on April 11th, we'll be there. Mike, what's going on?
My book, Strange People on the Hill, comes out on April 7th. You've already heard probably me talk about it a little bit. If you go onto Hachette's website or just search Strange People on the Hill, you can still, I think, buy it at a discount using the code STRANGE20. I will be talking about that book with an interlocutor whose name is Jared Holt.
And last thing before we get going, our listener music this week is The Grind by Closed City Terror. This comes to us from a listener who's part of a band in Minneapolis that they described as dad metal. Dad metal.
I like the name. I like the name of the band for one thing, and also especially a Minneapolis band. That's right now because Minneapolis is close to our hearts.
The music you hear between segments, maybe a quick bit here and then some at the end, is that song. I have been so excited by all the music that our listeners have sent us, that they've made from bands that they're in, projects they've worked on. We've got a nice little backlog that we're working through. So if you've sent us music, just hang on. We're getting to it, and keep those submissions coming. I'm really enjoying listening to stuff that people have made. So you may have seen a lot of people, including the president, talking about a poll that sure makes it sound like his supporters are rallied up behind him after breaking his campaign promise of no new wars and starting a fresh one in Iran with a little dash of regime change for some extra flavor. The U.S. is spending nearly $1 billion a day on their little project in Iran, and officials are basically coming out and just straight up saying that they're sending American troops to go die for Israel.
To our steadfast partner, Israel, your mission is being executed with unmatched skill and iron determination. Fighting shoulder to shoulder with such a capable ally is a true force multiplier.
Your mission.
Yeah, should you choose to accept it. Well, a NBC News poll reported that 90% of the people who surveyed, who self-identified as MAGA, Jared, said they backed the strikes, and that just 5% said they didn't think they should have happened. But when you get outside of that narrow group, even among people who call themselves Republicans but not necessarily MAGA-aligned, things get more complicated. 54% of non-MAGA Republicans support the strikes, and 36% of them are against them. And it's bleaker across the general public. 56% oppose Trump's military action in Iran.
That's a majority.
Yeah. Just 36% approve of how Trump has handled stuff in Iran so far. Conventional wisdom has long been that wars start with like a big spike in approval rating, and that just is not happening here. This is arriving with a thud.
Yeah, it's a real head scratcher. Really makes you wonder why. But thankfully, we have top policy wonk in the White House, Stephen Miller, to try to help us understand why that might be.
But what you're seeing right now, Sean, is a military under President Trump's leadership that's not fighting politically correct, that isn't fighting with its hands tied behind its back. One of the reasons I fear, Sean, that some people in this country lost faith in the military and the capacity to use that military to defend us is because we had a woke Pentagon. Because we had a military who at the very highest levels, not the warfighters, was forced to fight a less than full fight. What you're seeing now, Sean, is a military that is unleashed in all of its lethal prowess to go out and seek, destroy, and kill the enemy, which is what militaries are for.
The notoriously woke entity, the Pentagon.
So I just like an aside there, which is like, we all know that Stephen Miller is a psychopath, right, by now. Everybody knows that. I think even the people who like him in MAGA are like, that's our psychopath. So everybody knows this guy's a psychopath.
There's at least like one listener out there right now that's hearing this, and it's just like, what? You're kidding.
So no, but he's just like, he's really, really deranged. But my question is like, okay, if he's the policy, why are they still putting this guy on television? Because if you hear that, it's not like he has like a full range of sound in his voice. It always hits the same shrieking pitch every single time. He's not a trumpet or something. He's a slide whistle. It's just like, bop, 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 bop. And then I feel like they could find somebody who sounded more like a normal human being to try to promote this stuff. But I guess it's only fitting that it is what it is.
Well, it's in short supply. We'll talk about that in a minute. But yeah, this issue is a loser. Like, yeah, just straight up.
I mean, things were bad with the Epstein stuff, which we covered quite a bit on the show. And there's everybody's calling it an Epstein war, Operation Epstein Fury, whatever you want to call it. But whatever it is not shaking the stink off of this administration, because The Economist has this as of March 8th, which is right now. Trump is at -19 approval, 38% approve, 58% disapprove, 4% are unsure. That's extremely bad. The stock market, though, right? Actually, Jared, wait, the stock market is booming, right? It's is it over 50? What's going on with the Dow Jones?
Are we talking about the Dow?
The Dow right now is over. The Dow is over $50,000. I don't know why you're laughing.
Why does she sound like she's crying? If you listen to it, if you just imagine her crying, it sounds like she's crying. Like she's just she's hovered over destroyed belongings. You know what I mean? Like that are like all over the ground. Like the Dow.
Well, she said in that clip it's over 50,000. That is no longer true. The stock market does not like war with Iran.
No, it's quite down. And as a matter of fact, Bitcoin, that was the big thing, right? It was Trump was supposed to just like rig the crypto market, right? Like that was, he was going to come in.
I mean, he's made hundreds of millions of dollars pushing shit coins and meme coins and whatever, and he even, isn't it David Sachs? Isn't he the like crypto czar now or something?
Yes, he's many things. And that's one of the things he is. And anyway, David Sachs of shit. The, Bitcoin is toileting. It is at its lowest point in over a year, I think, or a year.
Yeah, we were looking up the price, and you were like, "Oh man, that looks bad." And be like, "Dude, click on a month, and it'd be like, "Whoa, that's not good." And
yeah,
like, click on a year. Click on
every month.
Click on the year.
Smaller crypto is quite literally ripping people's savings apart. Any kind of meme coin or whatever, that's. You're playing 3-card Monte on the street. But all these people are getting destroyed. These are the people who are very, very pro-Trump and excited about how much they could grift our economy and steal from everybody. Well, they're losing money. And like, gas prices, not good there, Jared.
Well, Trump said that all the tariffs and stuff, those were going to like bring jobs back. We had to do all this crazy shit to bring jobs back. How's that going? Oh,
yeah. No, not so good. Not so good, because they were expected to add jobs, but they ultimately slashed 92,000 jobs. Imagine what it'll be next month as we start to dip towards a recession. And then remember also this whole AI project continues to be foisted upon us by the powers that be. And that's also accelerating unemployment. Not good.
Also, immigration, the signature MAGA issue after LA, Chicago, Minneapolis, the violence, deadly, in some cases, violence that has been enacted. The signature signature. This is the flagship Trump issue, right? Polling on that is abysmal. Half of Americans polled today support abolishing ICE, not what your Democrat senators and shit are talking about of like, we need accountability and investigations. Half of America supports nuking this thing, just nerfing it and throwing it in the garbage. And Kristi Noem, the face of it at DHS, is ejected. There's a scandal involving some suspect spending of hundreds of millions of dollars on DHS ads. And she made the mistake of saying Trump approved it. So she's out.
What's interesting is I did a little bit of press this week for the book, and I was forced to kind of look at 2024 and remember it. I went through a lot of personal stuff in 2024, which I'm sure we're going to talk about it on Politics and Prose. But for the most part, as you know, I kept like completely offline. I was not I didn't post on X. I didn't post on Blue Sky. And I was just focused on finishing my book. I really tried to avoid social media altogether. And, I would still catch up with things like when Trump, like with Butler, Pennsylvania, when the assassination attempt on Trump and blah, blah, blah. I would catch up with that. But I have a vivid memory of like turning on the RNC and seeing this woman, grandma-age woman in a wheelchair, like holding up a sign that said mass deportations now. And I was like, I'm checking out again. I'm turning off the TV.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know what has been happening, but I'm turning it off. And I just bring that up as, point of reference of where we were before this moment and just how much enthusiasm there was for lack of a better word, just a fascist project. It was just a fascist project and people were all about it. And I don't think they are right now.
Yeah. And then they got started doing it and the country collectively was like, this sucks.
What we want to do here with this episode, this two-hander, is kind of just take a look at where MAGA is right now and really analyze about whether they're really faltering. Because we've seen some analysis from people like Batya Ungar-Sargon, who says like, the MAGA coalition is not faltering. Don't believe what you hear in like the left liberal bubble. They don't know what they're talking about. It's stronger than ever. This is just a few like hiccups or whatever. I mean, she's essentially just a water boy, water girl, whatever you want to say for the administration at this point. But I think it's important for us to like really kind of look at this. And I am going to make the argument today that they are actually really, really faltering right now. And they're in a very weak position.
We have, I guess we're going to break this into a few segments here to make the case that there really is a problem in the MAGA movement. Israel and the administration's support for it, Iran, and a whole host of other issues, but especially those two.
Yeah, really and also the issues of anti-Semitism as well, because it's not just that they're supporting Israel, but also that the anti-Semitic response to that support is also creating huge divisions.
How many of y'all remember Tucker Carlson, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there was a period towards the end of the first Trump administration where this guy was, I think you'd be really hard-pressed to argue that he was not the most powerful person in conservative media and not the most useful stooge in the roster of MAGA media personalities.
I think you could easily say he's one of the most powerful people in America. He had 4 million people watching him on Fox News every night, 8 o'clock. And I remember feeling that tremendous frustration, I'm sure you felt too, where we were covering these radical right figures and like you would do everything you could to sort of contain them. And then the same thing you would see on Daily Stormer that morning would wind up like on his show. He had a tremendous amount of power and he was very instrumental in pushing the movement to the place that it's at now.
He really transformed the conservative movement for the worst. Why are we talking about Tucker in this context, Mike?
Well, Tucker has become very, very loudly critical of Israel and the United States' relationship to Israel.
One thing I noticed, I can't contain myself and have to express it, but when you say that the Israelis are destroying Beirut, which is, having been to a lot of places in the world, one of the prettiest places on the globe. Beirut is just is a marvel. It's beautiful. It reminds me, and it's being destroyed by Israel, which is one of the single ugliest countries in the world. Nothing of beauty has been built there since 1948. Sorry, I've been everywhere in that country, and it's true. That the nature of this emerging empire is destructive, and it always seems like beautiful things wind up being destroyed. Europe, right? Beirut, parts of Syria, the holy sites. Parts of Iran are apparently beautiful, totally blown up. This does seem like a war on beauty as well, which next to truth is like, this is not an American perspective, but it's a Christian perspective and a real perspective. It's a global perspective. Beauty is worth preserving. And yet it seems the determined effort of the IDF to destroy beauty. And I just want to say that because I really notice it.
That's wild, actually.
All right, man.
That's wild.
Wow.
That's wild. Okay, so
all right.
So
All right.
Tucker
back
is
on track. Back on track.
I started laughing during it because it is really over the top. Tucker is a master of propaganda. It's like he's really good at messaging that way. You can make fun of Tucker all you want, but there's a reason why people love doing parodies of his voice and that sort of thing. Is partly because he is really good at holding court. He's able to hold people's attention. He behaves like a clown, basically. And he does have aspects of journalism in what he does, but his main driver of what he does is propaganda. And in the same way, he was such an effective propagandist to turn people in this nativist direction, getting them to believe in this great replacement conspiracy theory, which was such I think the lasting legacy of that show on Fox.
Yeah.
He's now really turning it against the administration in the place where they are the weakest. This is like seeing, it's like a Family Feud and seeing somebody with a limp and like just being like, I'm going to sweep that, I'm going after that, right? Like Karate Kid style.
Yeah. Well, Tucker's not playing ball on the Iran war. He's speaking out against it pretty strongly. But he's criticizing the administration for taking on this effort. But I also do want to say that Tucker is still kind of leaving this out for the administration by basically blaming it for being too devoted to Israel. He's like, I don't support it. The Trump administration is making a huge mistake and shooting itself in the foot here. But the real problem is Israel, is sort of his thesis of a lot of this commentary. So there's been
acting like Trump doesn't have agency.
There's been a lot of reporting where it's like, oh, Trump's going to war with the administration. But I feel like that's important to point out because, yeah, like you said, Mike, he's acting like Trump is brain dead and like, getting weakened at Bernied into this thing.
Well, it's a country the size of Delaware that is like a fraction of our economy that is propped up by our tax dollars, right? So certainly Trump has a lot of agency and can do a lot of things here, right? In theory, but he's not doing them. And that is, I think a pretty significant issue that Tucker is kind of leaving out. He went to Israel to interview Mike Huckabee. And Mike Huckabee, formerly the governor of your old home state, Arkansas.
Yeah.
Not happy about
I remember hating Mike Huckabee from a very young age because he did something that in hindsight was actually probably a good idea, which was I just remember that I would go to like after school program and wait for my parents to get off of work to come like get me after school. And the soda machine one day was replaced with like an apple juice machine. And I remember being like, what the fuck?
That sounds pretty fucking woke, to be honest with you.
And they're like, oh yeah, it's the governor's thing. He wants healthy food in schools. And it's like...
That's some Michelle Obama tier policy.
I remember, yeah, but you got to remember, when I was like 10 years old, I was like, this man is a demon.
got on your bad side. Well, he is the ambassador to Israel now. And Carlson flew out to Israel, and he claimed that Israel had detained him. Israel pushed back against it and described it as a routine passport inspection type thing. There were rumors that Israel wanted to block him from entering the country altogether. I don't know the exact truth there, and I guess maybe we never will know. It's one of those type of things. But it certainly added to Tucker's list of grievances against Israel, and it helped take his audience, which really reaches the millions, into a more like strong anti-Israel position, which again is not necessarily anti-Semitic at all. But he knows very well that there are a lot of anti-Semites in his audience, I am sure.
Well, he gets them into a zone that's like in pretty, especially in the right wing, in very close proximity to all that shit. And then he has people on his show, like that pseudo historian guy that does like revisionist Nazi
Martyr
history.
Mead, that guy.
Yeah,
that guy is such a douchebag.
So he knows what he's doing, right? It's like Tucker won't necessarily come out and be like, screaming about like Zionist occupied government or whatever, but like, but he knows he's leading the horse to the water. You know?
No, he knows who butters his bread, basically, because once you're in the online space, as we're going to continue to talk about, like where you're relying on X for your money, you kind of have to do that because that's where the money is. Well, anyway, he interviewed Huckabee, and it's just a very illustrative moment where he presses Huckabee in some actually interesting journalism. I'm not trying to give Tucker Carlson too much credit here, but he does force Huckabee to give an answer here. And he gets basically Huckabee to say that Israel should just take all of the land in the Middle East, just all of it.
You've appealed to Genesis. Genesis 15 says it's pre-Abraham, it's Abram, receives from God the news that his descendants will inherit the land. And you tell me as the theologian if I'm getting this wrong, but from the Euphrates to the Nile. I think that's right. And that would include like basically the entire Middle East. That would be the Levant. So that would be Israel, Jordan, Syria, Lebanon. It would also be big parts of Saudi Arabia and Iraq. It would be,
I'm not sure it would go that far. I mean, it would be a big piece of land, but here's the point.
It would be a lot of places that are now countries.
But this particular area that we're talking about now, Israel, is a land that God gave through Abraham to a people that he chose. It was a people, a place, and a purpose. We can look at it that way. Christian Zionism, I want to go back because that's where we started.
I'm not going to let you off on this because you have said it 3 times that God gave this land to this people. And so it is entirely fair for me with respect to ask, what land are you talking about? Because I just read Genesis 15, as I have many times. Mm-hmm. And that land, I think it says, from the Nile to the Euphrates, which is, once again, basically the entire Middle East. So God gave that land to his people, the Jews, or he didn't. You're saying he did. What does that mean? Does Israel have the right to that land? Because you're appealing to Genesis.
Yeah.
You're saying that's the original deed.
It would be fine if they took it all.
Okay. Love, by the way, to be directed, policy directions from the book of fucking Genesis, by the way. It was really sane moment we're living in. Yeah, it's worth remembering, I think, that Tucker didn't come into this moment of the second Trump term, with a great relationship to Trump. When the lawsuit against Dominion voting systems went down, a whole bunch of texts came out publicly, and Carlson said about Trump, I hate him passionately, and there isn't really an upside to Trump. And Trump is a demonic force, a destroyer. And that he couldn't wait to be able to ignore Trump on his show. So this is how he left the first run of Trump. And now he's getting the second, his second helpings, right? So he didn't like the first meal, and it's been sitting in the fridge, and now he's heating it up. and he's eating it again. And it's safe to say that not only does Carlson remember this stuff, but also Trump probably does too.
Someone else who has been kind of pissing off the administration, rattling some cages in MAGA media has been Megyn Kelly, another former Fox host who was all in on Trump and is now kind of, is still mostly all in on Trump, but kind of buckling. I thought this clip of Marjorie Taylor Greene, who we've covered on the show before, as she's kind of broken away from the MAGA movement over, starting with the Epstein stuff. But I think developing that, I think Marjorie Taylor Greene correctly saw that the movement was like a political suicide mission. If she had bigger ambitions and wanted to, outlast it. And here's them talking about sort of the state of the MAGA movement as it regards Iran.
And I want to know, where the hell is J.D. Vance? Where is he? Where is Tulsi Gabbard? Because if they stand by and are silent and they're turning back on the same words they said, it's all on video. All of them are on video saying it, just like I'm on video saying no more foreign wars, no more regime change. I'm on video on campaign stages and at Trump rallies saying the exact same thing. But where's JD and where's Tulsi? And the president...
Well, I'm sure behind the scenes, at least JD has worked to stop this, but he's lost. I mean, that's
he's gotta say
what's obvious now is any detractor. The same way Tucker went in and tried to talk Trump out of this, and he lost and admitted the Mark Levins of the world have won.
Yep.
I mean, Mark Levin and Lindsey Graham, forgive me, spent the entire weekend with a massive heart-on. There's just no... You could see it in the commentary. They were thrilled. They were gleeful. I mean, they were just overly excited at the fact that we were now risking American troops' lives for Israel.
It's interesting that Trump targeted Kelly, if you recall, in this really misogynistic way in the debates, and it seemed like she was going to break lib for a little bit almost.
Yeah.
And now it seems like she has reinvented herself as some sort of the mom to the white supremacist movement. It's just so weird. I don't even fully understand.
The Ben Shapiro crew, I'll mention them in a second, but they've taken to calling her Grandma Groiper.
Oh, that's pretty good.
It is pretty good.
That's pretty,
she's
that's
taking
a singer for them.
She's taking the crown from Michelle Malkin, who previously had that position.
But I mean, what her point about Mark Levin, I mean, he has of course been he is really about the American Israel, go and bomb all the enemies of Israel. He's the literal that's
for decades. Yeah.
Yes. And also, of course,
just disgustingly anti-Muslim.
Yes.
Hardcore old school Zionist.
Yeah. He also has the look of a guy who smoked way too much weed, but I don't think he really did. I don't know what caused it, but he looks like the type of guy who would just be sitting in the corner of a vinyl shop or whatever, just barely holding his head open.
Yeah,
anyway,
there's a parallel universe where Mark Levin was cool, but we got this one.
Oh man. Anyway, but in Stephen Miller's previously private emails to Breitbart, he referenced, and I didn't include it as much because it didn't fit along the white nationalist side of things, but he referenced, I think it's mentioned in there, he referenced Levin all the time. He loved him. And I think it's important because Levin was part of that kind of coalition, that MAGA coalition against immigrants, right? The anti-immigrant message. So he was really in sync with MAGA very, very, very strongly in that first Trump administration. He was like a Jewish white nationalist, even if he's not really a white nationalist, right? He was like Miller, somebody who is Jewish, maybe very pro-Israel, but is so anti-Muslim, so anti-immigrant that it was he was buddy-buddy with everybody and everything was cool. And now, and just as an idea of how things have changed, he seems like he's rapidly becoming this kind of symbol of, their allegiance to Israel.
Yeah. Well, Trump is clearly getting a little shaken by people like Megyn Kelly and Tucker Carlson. He told, I think it was ABC News last week, when asked about it, I think MAGA is Trump. MAGA's not the other two, referring to Carlson and Kelly. And then he went on to say that Tucker Carlson has, quote, lost his way and is, quote, not smart enough to understand what America First actually means.
What America First actually means, based upon what he's saying there, is that Trump is like, if I point up and I say the sky is green and you see it as blue, the sky's fucking green, shithead. You know, that's what he's basically saying here. That's what America First is.
I mean, White House spokespeople are saying the same thing, where it's like MAGA is the guy, right? And I feel like, people like you and me have been arguing that for a decade now.
Yeah.
And then they're just like, yeah, that's what it is. It's just about this guy. It's whatever the fuck he says it is what it is.
Mm-hmm. The movement is a cult of personality. I mean, it's many things, but it is for sure a cult of personality, and the idea that it's something else is absurd. I don't agree with Trump that Tucker Carlson is not smart enough to understand what America First is, in the sense that I think that Carlson is probably much smarter than Trump. Trump is himself. It doesn't matter, like, Trump's intelligence, not intelligent. I wouldn't deny that he's certainly gifted at, he's clever, Trump, but he's more of a shark. He's just like a thing that eats and takes. He's pure instinct. He's he's just like a perfectly created, force of destruction, as Tucker correctly labeled him. But Carlson is stupid enough. The way in which he's a cuck here is still continuing to sell his audience on the idea that America First means something, which is the same thing that Nick Fuente, and they're the real cucks ultimately. And Trump understands that, because he's like, you fucking stupid fucks. You think this meant something? This is just me just ripping off the country and ripping off all of you. You're too dumb to understand it.
Well, and he also knows they don't have shit if he's gone. So it's like they need him, right? At the end of the day, they need him.
The best thing that could happen to these people is that Trump dies of natural causes, and they don't have to endure like a full-on movement collapse based upon the economy and other things, because anything like that is going to potentially take them out, and everybody involved with this with them. So the best thing they could do is if Trump fucking dies of natural causes, and then they can continue.
For a long time, I've tried to explain, and I've been called a crank and all kinds of crazy shit for this, but I've tried to...
You're too young to be a crank, by the way, but...
I've tried to encourage people to think about MAGA as a hate movement, right? It's like the premise of this movement is, yes, supporting this guy, but also identifying an outgroup, whether that's immigrants, whether that's racial minorities, whether that is anything that is woke or DEI or too gay or not gay enough. Okay, maybe not that one, but it's just picking out targets basically, and people are like, well, isn't this hypocritical? Isn't this like how can they reconcile this? And it's like that you have to understand that it's a cult of personality that is united in a hatred of people that it perceives as its enemies, and because of that, ultimately it is entirely plastic and malleable to whatever is suggested as a means of getting to delivering pain and violence and suffering onto those enemies, right? So it's like there are no ideas. This is not actually like an ideological movement. And as I feel like the sooner people can let that idea go, the sooner they can kind of like actually start to see what this is.
I agree with you 100%. And I think we covered this last year at some point. We did so many different episodes last year, but we definitely covered this.
We're on 86 right now, dude.
Yep. Good luck, Mets World Series year. We did a little bit about this whole woke right thing, if you remember. Like I'm sure we mentioned it on a few occasions, where it was just this idea of like these purity spiraling people who are anti-Israel or whatever. It feels like a continuation of that discourse has been, has gone on longer and has now been accelerated by this war that kind of directly fell into the claims that the so-called woke right people were making.
Yeah. So you have people like Ben Shapiro and the rest of the, we keep writing turbo Zionist in our show documents, but my dog's name is Pierre Turbo, and I just think of him every time I read this, and I think, hey, he's a good guy. Pierre's a good dude.
Well, there's got to be a phrase for somebody who's like so revved up on it. I think that's why we're going
we'll
turbo.
keep workshopping it. But yeah, it's an extension of that woke right discourse. They're basically trying to do cancel culture on people like Megyn Kelly and Tucker Carlson, going on their podcasts and being like, they're off their rocker. Megyn Kelly is grandma griper. They're blah, blah, blah. But the MAGA movement already gave this fight up, right? I mean, I know we covered it at the end of last year at the Turning Point USA conference, where Ben Shapiro went out swinging against Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens for platforming anti-Semites and expressing things themselves that could be considered anti-Semitics. Well, in Candace Owens' case, for sure.
Yeah. That's something beyond even anti-Semitism. I don't even know what's going on there.
That is just a circus.
I mean, I think she thinks Jews are aliens or something.
But like Ben Shapiro went out there, he was one of the first speakers. He was like, we have to call it out. We have to denounce it. And then like every other speaker, including the Vice President of the United States, was just like, listen, dude, this is a big tent. If you hate the Jews, that's fine. Get on in here. Yeah. In more or less words.
They did do that. And you remember also there was the Ben Shapiro, Steve Bannon, rivaling speeches. So I mean, that was like, this stuff has been happening for a while. And as this is happening and they're trying to sell the war to people, I just want to interject this small detail, Jared, because I think it's really important. Do you remember, everyone listening at home, to when the Iraq war was popping off? If you were alive during that time, hopefully, and you're paying attention and everything, people were saying a lot, they're doing this for the oil. They're doing this to take the oil. You remember that? And that was like the leading criticism that you would hear. You would hear people say that. Well, you have people now like Jack Posobiec and that guy, Captain Dreamer, who we covered way back on that episode with Hannah and Steve Monticelli. They're out there saying like, yeah, this fucking rocks. We're going to take the oil. That is the sales pitch. The influencers who are kind of close with the MAGA elite, those people are trying to sell people on not only regime change, but also like, we're going to steal their oil.
Well, that happened after Venezuela, too. Like, they spent months being like, drug traffickers, it's fentanyl, we have to do something. And then as soon as they got in there, it's just like, yeah, it was about the oil.
It's insane.
Yeah, we got the oil now.
Yeah, but
and
I mean,
they're doing the same exact thing here, where they're like, it's about their weapons. You got to think about the nuclear stockpile, and maybe they were going to attack us. And is it a war? It's a war. It's a war. No, it's not a war. It's are we doing it for Israel? No, with Israel. What are we doing?
Yeah,
and now they're just
I've never even heard of Israel.
And now they're just like, fuck it, dude. Oil, man. It's about the oil. Okay, let's be real.
I mean, it is saying that you're doing this for the oil. Well, first of all, you're talking about straight up war crimes, right? In any case, these are war crimes because they can't define why they're, like the only way it wouldn't be a war crime is if it's, if it is in response, if it's self-defense in some case. It's obviously not, but they can't even articulate anything. So it's obviously, it's just, it's inherently criminal behavior. The UN hasn't sanctioned it, and it's a war crime. I mean, the fact that they're going to this is Michael Tracy level contrarianism. It's almost like Epstein good to go out and say like, yeah, we're going to invade this random country and take their oil.
I think last note on the divisions I'll put here is that the Make America Healthy Again coalition is breaking and fissuring with the Iran war. Who would have ever thought they'd be really concerned with foreign policy? But I guess that's what you get when, the manifestation of Making America Healthy Again is RFK Jr. being like, how come them drinks at Dunkin' Donuts got so much sugar in them? Which is a good question. If you've ever seen how much sugar goes into those drinks, it's pretty absurd. But like,
he's one of many extraordinarily hellbound people in this administration. He's going to hell. And one of the things is like, he kind of sold himself as like an anti-war or whatever over his father's branding. And he doesn't do anything but steroids and like text whatever reporter he's trying to cheat on his wife with next.
Well, the next phase of our case on why things are actually breaking apart, why the MAGA movement does have a problem, just has to do with the evolution of the rhetoric and the online behavior of the MAGA movement, because it's really been, since the beginning, this online coalition that has been the glue holding this shit together. There is like a contagion affecting it.
Yeah.
It is getting sick. I mean, it's always been like fucked up and bad, but it is like getting diseased. Now.
We didn't talk about this before we did this. We went on to do this show, but I just want to put something here for you and just tell you what you think. Elon Musk bought Twitter, very famously, for too much money.
He did what? The space
telling
guy?
Me now for the price, the financier. He bought it for way too much money, and I think the idea we generally glean from that is like he wanted to shape the 2024 election and any future elections and whatever, you know what I mean, just to be able to create his, shore up some consent by rigging the game, making the algorithm like favorable for these right-wing ideologies. But I do think it's starting to bite him in the dick a little bit, just because people are cooking on this shit too much. It's like they created this thing, and it's this wonderful, wonderful thing. You take the election, and now you could make all these changes. But now it does feel like it's really starting to make these people fucking weird, dude. And that has been the outcome of just ramping up this algorithm and putting everybody in one place on the X app, getting them off of the forums and everything else, and just letting them cook on this thing. It feels like they're really starting to get fucking weird.
As evidenced by now, Glenn Beck has. We're gonna if you're online, you've probably seen this by now, but like Glenn Beck talked to AI George Washington about the Iran war, and wouldn't you know it, he agreed with Glenn Beck about everything.
What?
Glenn Beck has done this a handful of times. So basically, he has like an AI model of George Washington, and he'll have like a chat conversation with it, and then they hire an actor to reenact the chatbot. It has to be heard to believed.
George, we are trying to not fight foreign wars and not be involved in the world's policemen, but there are times that we
have music.
Yeah, it was kind of, it's George Washington, so
demonstrate strength in order to prevent conflict. But I don't know where the foreign entanglement begins and where it ends.
When I was president, I did not crave power. I didn't strut in my uniform, dreaming of conquest. In fact, I begged several times to not be the general and not be the president. I didn't want it, but I understood my responsibility. And I also understood that some things that are easy to forget when you're staring down bayonets. Peace is not the default. It has to be guarded deliberately with foresight and strength. My generation lived through a fragile independence. Our new republic was surrounded, literally and figuratively, by instability. Most of the founders believed that we would not.
Oh, that's enough. That is so fucking weird. I saw this. Okay, so I think worth mentioning here, just in general, because this is a big part of it, AI is having a huge impact on why they're getting weird. And the sheer amount of content that they are, I think like people of all political stripes are using AI for different things, right? Yeah. But it's the MAGA movement is where people seem to be embracing AI unconditionally.
So much content is AI generated.
Yeah, and you can see, like, for instance, Ian Miles Chung, for instance, will have, all of a sudden, he had nothing to say past, like, 3 lines. All of a sudden, we'll post these, like, essays that are very clearly, like, AI written. I mean, these people are running their posts through AI. Like, everything you see there is some form of slop coming out of the movement. It's almost like, like RoboCop, where he's like, there's a little bit of the cop still there, but, like, the rest is all robo. That's what the content mostly feels like. And you're seeing this, like, just totally insane brain rot slop on top of something. That's like brain rot. The Glenn Beck thing is like for people who like shit themselves watching the History Channel. But there's other stuff with like Jeffrey
watching Modern Marvels, and they're like
watching
making
Modern
light
Marvels and
bulbs.
just blowing diarrhea into your Depends. Sorry. But like there's like there's like all these videos with like Jeffrey Epstein, like this cast of revolving characters like Puffy, Charlie Kirk. Some of these are like nonpartisan, like they don't necessarily come out of that, but they're like very big on X. Like George Floyd is a character. I in fact saw one video that a white supremacist did where Glenn Beck is talking to, and he's like, "What do you think, George?" And they replaced George Washington with George Floyd. And he was sitting there instead with no answers to the question, because it's like done by some kind of psychotic racist. Imagine what it's like to be on that app like 16 hours a day and just taking in the AI slap constantly. It's very disorienting. There's a reason why this stuff is like produces a lot of surreal, inhuman language and imagery. It doesn't understand what's going on. It's a large language model.
Well, speaking of language, there's a lot of like just the posts themselves are increasingly hard to decipher. You've got stuff like goon bait, goy slop, the looks maxing rhetoric that we covered with Annie Kelly a couple episodes
that we covered
ago.
already.
And then the pro-Israel right using this term that you wanted to talk about, Holocaust inversion.
Yes.
Which I had never heard of before.
Well, that Olivia Reingold.
I'm just thinking, like, I've spent a lot of time in Photoshop, so I'm just like, when I hear inversion, my brain automatically goes Command-I. So you invert a picture.
So, that
I'm
Olivia...
letting you inside my sick and twisted mind right now. It's just Photoshop shortcuts.
You saw, like, you saw them, like, flipping out that, like, Mamdani's wife liked some posts around October 7th. Right?
Yeah. The lowest form of investigative journalism.
Yes, just rock bottom shit. And it's like, okay, maybe that like likes on social media could provide additional evidence for somebody's ideology if you've done some like a real investigation, but likes alone aren't shit. And we used to throw out stories where it was like the main basis was just somebody liked a bunch of posts. It's fine if you want, like a retweet is more, but of course somebody's own words are more, and they're private conversations, and you have to do real work to get private conversations and get leaks and things like that. Anyway, this is just, she liked some posts that mentioned that Israel is an apartheid state, and everybody kind of freaked out in the free press community.
It's the exact kind of thing that these same people used to call hall monitor stuff.
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh ho ho, she liked naughty post, naughty. That's a demerit. You're getting detention today.
It's as one of my followers pointed out, that it is a legitimate story when Ted Cruz likes a porn tweet, because that's just fun for the whole family and fun for Ted and everybody. We all get to enjoy that.
Fun for most families, but one family in Texas, I think a very specific family, probably did not have a whole lot of fun with that story.
But Olivia Reingold, who's that woman who was kind of trying to debunk that people were starving in Gaza, really good person, by the way.
She made it in the top 10 worst takes last year.
Yes, that's right. She referred to Mamdani's wife as having engaged in Holocaust inversion by liking some of those posts. And if you want to know what that is, I did my best to find out. It is apparently when you refer to Israel as committing a genocide, which the UN and many other very mainstream sources have said is true, including Israeli genocide scholars. And
pretty much like every government except ours is like, this is pretty fucked up.
This genocide is a genocide. And if you do that, which I just did, you are potentially, in the eyes of the free press now, engaging in something called Holocaust inversion, where you take, their idea is that you take the Nazi atrocities and you hold them in your hands, and then you invert it and ascribe it to Israel instead, as if they are not the victims, which is we couldn't laugh about this one, but it's actually extraordinarily fucked up.
It's really sinister.
It's really sinister, and it's not that different from goy slop or goon bait or any of these other things, because it's indicative of people who are just cooking in their bubble on X so long that they think this is something you can actually trot out. If you've never engaged with somebody who supports Palestinian freedom, you've never had a conversation that wasn't a shouting match or it wasn't based upon total, then this is the type of thing that you could come up with. You are just seeing the other side and just assuming that they are insane and they themselves are genocidal. Anyway, it's pretty bad.
Well, they have to do that because they sure as hell aren't very comfortable confronting the anti-Semitism that is in their bubble, is cooking with them in the stew, yes. Right? I mean, we talked about in the premium that post that started out, that was like a reaction GIF that started out like Hitler in heaven.
Yes.
Realizing everybody hates the Jews now, having
Hitler in heaven,
having 400,000 likes on X. And I've seen shit like that all over the place, even like Instagram and YouTube comments. I mean,
we don't know if what's botted up, what's not, but that is a fucking crazy number, whatever it is. I saw it organically because people were retweeting it on my sock.
Even if 10% of those likes are authentic, that's still insane.
Yeah, it's insane. It's also, I would totally understand why many Jews are frightened seeing that stuff up close. If you're on that app, and the Jews who are on that app, there are journalists and stuff like that, but there are a lot more people who are on the right who are engaging on that percentage wise than that, and so they're seeing this stuff up close, and I'm sure it's hardening them into a position as well. I think I don't want to miss talking about what goy slop is really quick so people understand that one, because it's you might see people use that word or put goy in front of things, like goy is non-Jewish. And goy slop, the idea is that it's content to kind of inure, I guess, white Christians into not rebelling against the Zionist occupied government. I guess is that the basic? Is that what goy slop is? Am I defining that accurately? It's our first time talking about this on the air.
I mean, that's part of it, and I think the idea is also just this bigger sort of concept of basically the cultural equivalent of junk food to dumb down the non-Jewish population so that
you did a better job than I did, actually,
so that Jews can control the world more or something.
Right, that the Jews are feeding out goy slop in order to keep you asleep.
Because Jews run Hollywood and the whole fucking planet, according to these people,
Right, and then you have this phrase, the goyim know. We've seen that pop up a lot in rhetoric, which is I knew mostly from covering the Right Stuff podcasting network and all these white supremacist blogs in the first Trump administration. The idea being that they're white people are waking up to what the Jews are doing to them. That has become so ubiquitous that it's basically everywhere, and people are making jokes about it. That Anna Kasparian or whatever her name is, who used to be with the Young Turks.
Oh yeah,
she posted that, and I think she did. I can't tell whether I don't know whether people are sincere or not, and to what degrees tongue in cheek. But she's become increasingly weird, and she's also had a lot of transphobic type remarks as far as I've heard. So it's not good. It's really not good.
I'm not a huge fan.
Not coming on the show anytime soon.
I mean, it's one thing that this is what is incubating online, but it's also reflecting in official government messaging, right? There's been countless posts from DHS across social media that have lifted sometimes verbatim white supremacist imagery, references, that sort of thing. Everything looks like a Panther Den edit. Do you know do you remember Panther?
I don't actually.
Panther Den? Okay, everybody, forget you heard anything. All right. but everything looks, it's just like a very sort of poisoned, like remix kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and the White House is also doing these edits in order to try to get people to like the war or think the war is cool. And the way they've been doing that recently is they're trying to appeal to like dumb sports bros, I guess. And they've done like clips of NFL players doing tackles, and then there's like a bomb sound where they're playing like AC/DC in the background, and then the tackles and then the bombs blowing up. So it's like a mix of like war crimes and tackles. They're like, hey, you like the NFL, and you also like big explosions, dumbass. Here's this. And they also did it with a bunch of MLB players from the 90s who were busted with for using steroids. So they had like Bonds, McGuire, Sosa. I kind of miss when the government did not like just celebrate guys who cheated on their sport, But yeah, they have them hitting home runs. It's the type of thing that they're really trying to appeal to the sort of barstool Republican.
Yeah. And then, we'd also be remiss not to mention that the MAGA ecosystem online, has always had this electric undercurrent of misogyny, but it is getting really, really bad. Really bad. Just insanely aggressive misogyny, online sex abuse, targeting women, even women within the MAGA movement, right? I mean, I've seen a handful of influencers over the last like month or two just be like, oh my God, they're just getting like tortured by these audiences, right? That they're trying to cater to. And for some of them, they're happy to be victimized by it if it makes them money or whatever. I mean, I'm sure it hurts. I don't want to like delegitimize it or seem like I'm writing it off in any stretch, but they may have an incentive to make them to like let themselves be the target of it or tolerate it. But that's not across the board. I think a lot of female influencers in the MAGA movement are starting to get like a little freaked out and sick of this.
Well, we had Ashley St. Clair on, and she may be out of the movement, but she gave us a window into what they might be thinking, when they're not just posting for dollars. Well, I know you covered something for Open Measures that I wanted to bring up on the show because it is an extension of what I've seen online. We had we talked on and off on like the premium episode, and I think it's come up like a couple of times. I think it also came up in the Tracy episode. Just this crazy obsession with Alyssa Liu, the skater, and how all these guys were the ice skater. A skater makes it sound like a skateboarder, and how they were just hypersexual interpretation of Alyssa Liu's performance mixed with all these weird things about Nazism and everything else that they tried to graft onto her. Very weird incel coded type behavior. Alyssa Liu spoke to Rolling Stone and essentially said she likes Black Lives Matter and she's like anti-ICE protests. So game over there, guys. Shocker, by the way. Shocker that this woman with like cool hair and piercings, 20-year-old from the Bay Area. It's really shocking to find out that she's woke. I never would have guys assumed she was a Nazi just from looking at her. Anyway, she doesn't like them. But when we were prepping for this episode, I did a quick search because I was looking for something along the lines of Alyssa Liu to talk to you about, your story. And the first thing I found came up is like an AI generated porn where, like something really horrible is happening to her. She's like, it's not her consent to be in the pornographic short that was created. But sure enough, it's right there on X, totally available. Anybody can find it. Yeah, you reported on this place in 4chan. I don't know if we should mention it. Should we even mention the name of it? But it's like
I'll put a link to the story in the description of this episode. People can read about it, but I really want to emphasize that I highly discourage people from visiting it themselves
Yeah.
Because even in my brief encounters, I saw threads of people requesting AI-generated child porn.
Right.
And
so that's not something
people should not expose themselves to it. The people that are depicted on this board are victims. The less exposure to the specific content, the better.
I looked at it when you were reporting on it because you mentioned it to me and we wanted to do it here. I will say that there's a lot of overlap between what I see on X already. So that's, but just if you can explain it in a second, I will tell you what I think it is, and then you can. So maybe the difference between this and X is like X, you just see this stuff pop up in the wild, but it's a shop where you have people who kind of call themselves AI wizards, or they are called AI wizards, and they take requests from anonymous people of just random women, and they're asked to make porn of them using AI.
Yeah, it's basically like a factory floor for pornographic deepfakes of women, and that can include public figures. The reason, I found deepfakes of Alyssa Liu on there when I was writing something a couple weeks ago about the Olympics. That's how I was like, oh, actually, this place is insane, and I think I should write about that. So I spent, a couple weeks digging into it, pulling historical data we had for it and all that. I keep going back to the factory floor thing, but I think that's kind of the best way to think about it. It's like a conveyor belt producing this stuff in a very targeted way. That exists like all over 4chan at this point, but it's, we talked about the far right really just gobbling up AI and being really eager to incorporate it into all their shit. And I think this is just like a very sinister, potentially illegal example of the eagerness to basically incorporate slop into the dark shit that they're trying to do online.
Yeah, and so I think that what was troubling is I didn't go too deep in it. I didn't see anything that you mentioned. We talked briefly about like how do you even document it if people are making child sex abuse material on this. How do you even document it? Because it's like by documenting it, that would be illegal. But I didn't go too deep in on it to see that. I did see though something you had mentioned to me, which is just like random coworkers and people, random colleagues, classmates being dialed up, be like, hey, can you do this for me? Re-upping this. Can someone please put like this on her face or whatever? I mean, that alone is not great. I mean, that's like a very scary thing. And I think I mentioned to you that like Alyssa Liu, I don't obviously, I've already written about this, so people should know where I feel that I think it's fucked up. But Alyssa Liu is a public figure, and women in America who are famous deal with shit you can't even possibly imagine, like every day. And pop stars, and there's stuff going on before the age of the internet. I mean, there's just crazy shit, like people climbing through windows to get to touch underwear and stuff like that. We're talking about people who may not even really have a social media imprint. People who don't even want to be online, don't even want to be seen being violated.
Some of these threads I saw were just like, oh, there's this hot girl at my gym. Can you give me something of her getting, gangbanged or something?
Yeah.
And it's just a it's just a creep shot of some random ass woman that this person saw at the gym, who probably has no idea this is happening.
This episode took a dark turn. Yeah, I mean, that's really bad. Anyway, I think that's all part of the same story we're telling here, which is that at this moment, these people are getting weirder and weirder, and this movement is becoming harder and harder for, I think, mainstream Americans to understand. And I don't think that's the only story, too. It is, of course, pulling a lot of regular people into that loop. And if you think that story is not related to MAGA just because they're doing, deepfake porn. Look at where they're doing it. They're doing it on fucking 4chan, right? And they're posting it on X. So these are places that really are MAGA coded, to put it mildly.
Yeah. I mean, I think, we're getting close to the end here, but I think the way that I would kind of put a bow on it is that when Trump came into his second term, it seemed that MAGA had this moment of cultural dominance. But that culture, since he was sworn in very short order, in the course of a year or whatever, is really starting to just rot, right? I mean, it is just putrid in the core of this online culture. And
yes,
that's a problem for them. It's a liability for them, especially as, just looking at the clock, we'll have to cover this on Premium, this Miami Herald story about the Republican Party group chat in Florida with a bunch of conservative students that turned into just a sea of like Hitler worship and racial slurs. The next generation of this movement, like people like to think, okay, well, when Trump's gone, then we can get back to normal. But the Republican Party, like the next generation, the people that are going to be staffing congressional offices, running for office and stuff in the next 5-10 years, Trump or not, have come up in an environment incubated in this shit. And I think that should scare everybody. It certainly scares me.
Yeah. I think also we shouldn't just fall into the trap of saying like, this new generation coming up is insane. That's not the whole story. Lindsey Graham is also fucking insane. And we are seeing, no, literally.
But it's a different kind of insane. It's almost,
he's insane. His whole life is insane. If you look at like top to bottom, what a fucking life, and not a good way. I mean, his
What'd you
personal...
say? Was it top or bottom?
But the point is,
I'm fucking with you. Sorry.
Yeah, no, you're good. The point is that that we're seeing people like that, the Mark Levins, the Lindsey Grahams. We're seeing them get weirder. We're seeing them being them, like the id is taking over in this movement altogether. So you have these young freaks who have been grown up thinking Nick Fuentes is their version of Bill O'Reilly, and then the version of Bill O'Reilly, that audience, their previous version was someone much more normal, and it goes back. The point is that all these people are really starting to mutate at the same time and become unrecognizable. And while some of it is further isolating them, and I will land that point that they are the movement is faltering right now and is in danger. It's also taking a lot of people with them and making a lot of people fucking crazy. And I really think, this is my last point, I've continued to drive that we're going to have some sort of conflict around elections when it becomes very obvious that this can't continue without, rigging it. We already know in some way, or creating tensions around elections in some way, or, installing troops around voting, whatever they might do. I think that it's pretty fair to say that that's the direction they're headed, because, they already did it on January 6th. And if they're becoming too freakish, they're going to just assume that they're right. And we see the way they're behaving about Iran right now, knowing that it's unpopular. They're going to just plow ahead with everything they want to do, and just need to keep our wits about us.
Well, I think that it's a good place to wrap it up. For Patreon subscribers, we'll see you on Thursday. And again, the track playing us out is called The Grind by Closed City Terror.
Before you go, I just want to say, if I may, before you go, I just want to say, you're like becoming like John Peel. You're like becoming the John Peel, the posting through it, John Peel, because you're like, he used to get sent all these demos in the UK, and then he would have the bands play the live thing. Like he was such an instrument of music. So it's like, Jared, people just keep sending Jared their demos.
Yeah, so here's The Grind by Closed City Terror. Again, we'll see you Thursday. If you're on the Patreon, we'll see you back here Monday on the main feed. And may God bless the Dow Jones Industrial Average. Take care.
Bye, guys.
want to, I need to suffocate me, my hostility.